Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for taking your time and joining us today. My name is Marta. I work in DataArt company, and I'm going to be today's moderator of our event. Before we start, I would like to say that you may ask our speakers questions in the YouTube chat, and we will read and answer them after each speech, or if you have any comments while our speaker is talking, of course, I will monitor them and we will try to answer them as fast as we can. So please do not be shy and ask as many questions as you want. And last but not least, I would like to add that we, meaning DataArt, are organizing IT Nonstop online conference on December 3rd from machine learning to artificial intelligence. And all the details you will find below the description of our event. So not to prolong, let's start. Today we have two speakers performing, and we will start with Jacek Bosiacki, who will show us how to write code effectively. So Jacek, please, the stage is yours.
Yeah, hello everyone. I think I can start the presentation. Okay, everyone sees? Yeah, fine. Hello, I'm Jacek Bosiacki, working in DataArt for about 1 year. I'm working for some e-commerce company. Our project is based on IDE IntelliJ idea. So I would like to show you how you can write code using this IDE. Maybe not as fast as possible, but effectively in manners of writing code without maybe some mistakes, typos, or just to avoid switching to between mouse and keyboard as many times as usually people do, and show you that this way of programming is really cool and brings a lot of satisfaction. Also, this presentation is not about showcase how many shortcuts anybody knows. It's more like I would like to show you the way I did develop my skills in mouseless programming, and also how can you do that and how can you maybe measure your statistics so you can say see if this really helps you in the future and you can keep going with that. First of all, as I was told a bit earlier, the font size of the code is a bit too small. So if you want to see it bigger, you can look for it in any options. Actually, I also don't know where exactly it is, but there is one command that kind of can conclude all the presentations I will do. Because there is a shortcut Ctrl-Shift-A, and in here you can just type the thing you want to do. So it's kind of all commands in one, but because you have to write every command in here, it's not so effective. But for example, if you want to increase the font size, there is no proper shortcut for that. Because if any command has the shortcut, it will be shown in here. So if you, for example, want to, I don't know, generate that's not a good idea, but generate menu will be the shortcut will be Alt Insert. So it is shown. And here you have the information that this is regarding the code. So right now we will just increase font size. Whoops, font size. Maybe we will repeat that a few times. And I think right now it is much more much better visible. Okay. About mouseless programming, the most important thing is to know where is your focus, in which part of the IDE, because it also means which shortcuts what will do and how the application will work. For example, right now we are in the coding part. You can recognize this with the oh Jesus, I forgot how this is called. The cursor of the coding, where it is, and it like blinks a bit. So if you want to go back to this coding part, usually you just press escape as long as you go back in here, but sometimes it doesn't work. If you just don't have any pop-up dialogs open, you can just press F4, sorry. Yeah, native language coming out. Okay, so about the navigation through the whole dialog, you can first of all check all the menu in here. So normally you can just navigate your cursor in some of the places and click, but actually you can see that in every word in here, one letter is underscored. So it means that when you press left alt with any of that letter, the menu will pop up. So for example, if I want to check what's in file menu, I just press left alt and F, and the file menu here shows up. Right now I can stop pressing the left alt button, but when I click again any letter that is underscored in those words, for example, new, I can go further and check what's here. But unfortunately, in this moment, there are no more underscore letters. So, sorry. So in here, I have to use the arrow keys to navigate to the menu. And when I find something, I can just press enter. So this is one of the things to navigate without mouse. And like you can see, when you have some kind of command that also has mapped the shortcut, then you can just see here. And if you use that command a few times, you will just remember that this kind of shortcut does that action. And of course, if you want to go back, you can just press escape, you exit the menu, and you are back with the focus on the coding part. Other thing of navigation is you can see that on the left, right, and bottom sides of the window, you have some kind of tabs wrapped around the main window. And as you see, some of them before the name of tab you will see have the number which is also underscored. So it means that the same way as you enter the menu, you can also turn on or turn off the tabs in here. For example, you can see that on the left side I have the project tab. So when I will press Alt-1, I will just change focus from the coding part to the project tab, and I can navigate in here. So normally I just can use the arrows to go to the whole structure of my project, but it is time consuming because before I find some file, it might last really, really long time. So if I want to just make it fast, I can just start writing to find the file I want to open. Of course, this also should work with some kind of camel case, like every word is started with uppercase letters. So if I just write only those capitals, it will just find the files that will have in the camel case written exact the same. So I don't have, for example, to write the whole bootstrap check. I can just in uppercase write BC and the file is found. Of course, because of there are more files matching this pattern, I can just keep writing maybe not only in camel case, but some part of the word, then it will decrease the size of files found. Of course, if I want to open it, I just press the return key and I'm here in this file. If I now press escape, I am here again in the coding part, but also if I press the F4 key, which in my opinion is the better way, I am back also in the coding part. This will be all about the project side. Maybe do you have any questions about that?
So far, there are no questions. We can move on and check later on.
Yeah, so I think we can now start a bit with the most important thing in here. So it will be the coding. How can we generate the code quite fast? How can we make some maybe refactors? And also how can we run the tests or create the tests quite fast. First of all, maybe I can show you some shortcuts that are, in my opinion, worth remembering about the navigation. So let's start with the left Alt key. So when we hold the left Alt key and press the arrow key up or arrow key down, we can just jump between the methods or maybe the whole implementations of the methods or the whole class in the application. So this is the, in my opinion, fastest way to just spot the thing you want to spot in the application you want to edit. And also, if you want to navigate between files, it is a bit confusing in, for example, comparison to Eclipse, because when you hold left Alt and left and right arrows in Eclipse, you will travel between places you have been before. In IntelliJ, it works as the tab switcher. So we have some tabs of files we opened in the IDE. So when we press the left Alt key and the left and right arrows, we will just travel between those files. And if we want to travel back and further, we have to press the Shift Alt and then left and right arrow keys. Anything more about the maybe how can I call it, traveling in the code is like when you press just the Control and up and down arrows, you can just scroll it, but the focus will stay in the same place. So like you see it was called caret, I think. When you see the caret in here, when I press the Control and up and down, it stays in the same place. So that will be the main thing about the traveling. Maybe one shortcut, it's kind of tricky, I like to use is mostly when I edit some bigger file and I do it a long time, so I can remember maybe in which sides of the application some of methods or variables I'm looking for are placed. So I can just press the Ctrl-G shortcut, and here I can just write the line, and after the oh, it's not semicolon, I forgot the word for that, but you know what I mean. You can write the column. So I mostly just press, for example, Ctrl-G, line 1, and I'm at the beginning of the file. So I don't have to hold the left alt and just go multiple times. I can just Ctrl-G1, enter, and I'm at the beginning of the file. So this is really, really fast. With the mouse, it might last a bit longer. Also because I'm typing on the laptop, so the home button is a bit harder for me to find. So just typing Ctrl-G1, enter is for me faster. Yeah. Also, when you want to, for example, like in any editor, you can just hold Shift and with the arrow keys navigate the part of code you want to select. Also with Control Shift, you know, it gets faster with every word, but actually there is in my opinion, awesome way to select the whole part of the code with the Ctrl-W shortcut, because right now, if I'm, for example, in the middle of method invocation, I can just Ctrl-W and will, in that case, just select the variable I am focused on. But when I keep clicking the Ctrl-W, it will enlarge the size of the code selected. Right now, it selected all the variables in the method. When I press again, then I have the whole method. And when I press again, I have the whole line. And then the whole section between those God, I can't remember English names for those things. So it will enlarge the size of code selected in the, not like the single lines, but it'll just find the another part of the application. So after a few times, it will just select the whole file. So if we, for example, go too far with that, we can just press Ctrl Shift and then W, it will decrease the size of the code we have selected. So generally speaking, in IntelliJ, there is some kind of things that try to be, how is it called? Easy to learn. So for example, with a shift button, mostly when you just make some comment with the shortcut and you give to that shift key, it will just do the same, but the opposite thing. So for example, with the W, it will just increase, and with added shift, it will decrease the part of the code selected. So another example of that shift making the opposite thing will be with the Ctrl-Z command. It's a natural command of undo some editing, for example, some part of code. If we press Ctrl-Z, we just undo the thing. When we want to redo the thing, it's also different as in Eclipse. For the first time, when I migrated from one to this one, from Eclipse to IntelliJ, it was really hateful for me because I was using the Ctrl-Y shortcut, but in here it just removes the line of the code. So if we want to redo the action, we just press Ctrl-Shift-Z, so it will be the opposite action of the undo thing. And now we just redo the action. So it is worth remembering, because before you learn this, it might cause some of time losses because of mistyping the comment and losing some code. So in worst case scenario, you can just roll back from the version control system. Yeah. Any other useful things is maybe we can go to the beginning of the file, and in here we can just create a new variable. We can just like start to typing static final string or other things of code, but when you just press Control space, it will suggest us what we can type in here. So for example, we can just make some boolean that will be named test, and for the beginning we can make it like true. So right now we usually want to have a getter and setter for that to the access. So of course, when we just have the private modifier. So also when we don't press the control space and we start to write some things like in here private, it will also suggest us some of the possibilities. And when we have this kind of pop-up window, we can just also use the case to just navigate to the thing we want to use and then press enter or the tab button. Both of that will work. And right now we want to generate some code. So this is my favorite shortcut. I don't have to write the whole code. I just press Alt Insert, just select the getter and setter, and press again enter. And now we have the generated those methods, and like you see, the naming conventions, the dynamic convention for that is quite standard. So for the Boolean value, it won't be get test, it will write the is test. But when we use, for example, the same thing with string, it will be something like get test. As you see, the generation of the methods usually happens not in the desired spot. Usually we want to have getters and setters at the bottom of the application. So in my opinion, the fastest way to get there is to just select those two methods. And right now we can really fast move that between the sections of our class just by pressing Control Shift and now up key or down key. So like you see, this moves the whole code section we selected, but it doesn't move it into the method that we have next. It will just skip that and go further with the code. So with that case, we can just stay in the code block we want to stay, and we just don't get confused with the code. But as you see, for example, if we have methods in one class, it will jump. Those methods will jump in the nested class. So remember to leave it outside of the nested class. Yeah, so maybe about the code generations, that will be the basics. If you want to develop more, you can just press the this is weird. Okay, so if we just want to delete it and again press Alt Insert and getter and setter. Oh God, I got stressed and forgot what I was mentioning about. Oh yeah, if you want to get other options, you can just look in here and, for example, override the method Control O, and it will and remember those shortcuts. Or, for example, Control Shift A if you want to generate. Or we can see here in the Alt Insert, but we can, for example, do method go to the superclass or extract the methods. For this is mostly common used refactoring command. Then you can also see that here you have Control Alt M, and it will be a fast way of extracting something from your method to the another one. But maybe how does it look like? We can skip because we are a bit short of time. And I want to show you a lot of other things. Maybe because this was quite big part of the presentation, you have any questions that kind of I made too fast, or you don't get what it is about?
So I can see that there are no questions still, Jacek. So I guess we can move on. We hope that there are going to be some questions in the end.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so another thing that I personally love to use in the IntelliJ idea is the version control system. Because I don't have to find a terminal, type the whole things with comments and so on. I can just do maybe not everything, but almost everything by typing Alt and the key above the tab button. I think it's called tilde. So when I press the Alt tilde, I have this pop-up window, and like you see, the most commands are underscored with the numbers, so I can easily change between the branches or make a commit or push using this pop-up window. One tricky thing in Windows, it should work from the beginning, but for example, I am presenting that here from the Ubuntu, so it might be a bit tricky because Ubuntu has that shortcut map by itself, and it's kind of tricky to make that shortcut down because you have to use the terminal and type a command for that. I made it before the presentation to just avoid traveling between some applications. Yeah, so maybe first of the thing I like to do is the branches. Like you see, I have the whole list of branches. Yeah, I choose the Elasticsearch project for the presentation, something open source and kind of hot topic with the non-relational databases. And you have the branches with all the versions that were developed in here, so it is a lot of them. So the basic thing is you can just use the up and down keys to navigate to the branch you want to check out, but actually you can just start writing with something like 1.4, and right now you have only one branch you want to check out. So let's check what happens in here. We can just press now right key, so we can expand the menu. Every time you can see this kind of sign triangle pointing to the right side, you can just press the right key and you have the further menu. So maybe all these options I can leave for you to discover, but how the exact menu works, but it will look like that. So another important thing is that when you are like in dialogues like that and you can't find any focus you have on, it means that the focus is in the whole window, and when you press the return key or the enter key, it will always do the action from the black button. So if you want to check that, you have to use the tab button. It will jump between the sections, but remember that it will also not only change the button you are in, but also go into the section where you can go to the file and make some checks. Also, another possibility is when we press the left Alt key, you can see that, for example, for the force checkout, the letter F is underscored. And again, we can just use the left Alt and F to force check out the branch. So let's wait a bit until it gets checked out. Yeah, right now we are checked out. So we can check if oh no, it's indexing. Oh man, it might last some time. So meanwhile, we can just try to continue the presentation. Okay, so this tab is for the later presentation. Right now, I don't want to have it. So I think all of you know the shortcut Alt Tab. It will switch you between some of the applications you run on your whole operating system. But when you press the no, what was the shortcut? I think it was that, but it doesn't work. That's, yeah, okay, no, it works, but it's kind of froze for a while. So as you see, when we press Control and the tab, it will show us the tabs we have been in last of the time. So when we just navigate to the thing we were in, it will just navigate us to that place, and if we just press the backspace, it will remove it from the list. When we keep pressing backspace, it will just close every of the coding files we wanted to edit. Yeah, so going back to the version control system, if we want to, for example, I made some test file in here, and this in red, it means that it is not added to our version control system. So what? No. How it was done? To be honest, I can't remember. Okay, yes, add to VCS. So if we do that, right now the file is from red name to green one. It means that this is a new file in this branch. But how we will create this kind of file fast, I will tell you later when we go to the testing, because it's a testing file. But we want to roll back the change. So I use the shortcut key. We have already the rollback change, but you can just press again Alt tilde, and in here you have the rollback function, and you can see that the shortcut I used is Control Alt plus Z. Yeah, so in here we can, again, like you see, you can kind of notice that the focus is in this window. So when we press enter, it won't make the action from the blue key. So it is worth knowing. Right now, it will just do some in here. Actually, it will open this file, but when we want to uncheck that file, we use the space bar button. And to select, we can do that again. And if you want to make the rollback action, we can press the left Alt key. Again, we have some things underscored, also like this thing with the checkbox. So as you see, I can just easily tick the checkbox to make the change, and I will just roll back this file. Yeah. So as you see, the file is still in here, but we can just easily go to the project tab, press delete button, and agree to just remove it. Another thing I want to show you is the okay, so maybe one shortcut is opening the file is Control-Shift-N. Of course, you can use just Control-Shift-8 and open file or open class maybe. No. Open. Open file. Yeah, maybe not that. I just use the Control-Shift-N maybe, or it will be easier. So in here we can just, in the same way as we made in the project tab, we are typing with the camel case scenario, we can also make it in here. So if you want to make it smaller, for example, we can go in here and when we start, okay, file is read only. That's interesting. That's something I didn't expect, maybe of the force change. So we can just go back to the master, and I think it will all go to. This is interesting. Okay, because of the Gradle. Sorry, guys. I'm not good with Gradle, so I think that might be the problem. Again, branches, master, checkout. Yeah. So if we want to commit something, I'll just make some stupid code just to show you. We can again go like to the commit window. And as you see, the focus is in the commit message. So test commit message. If we want to go to the up of the window with the focus, you can just press the Shift tab. But if we want to proceed with to the further part of the window, we can just press the tab. So like you see, I am in here. I can also tick and untick files I want to commit. And when I hold the left alt button, I will have the commit option just by pressing I. I perform some code analysis. Yeah, because the part of code I wanted to commit is not the best. I can just in here cancel the whole thing. So let's exit that with escape. When you have some mistakes or maybe bad codes or maybe the IntelliJ just thinks that you can make some code a bit better and have suggestion for you how to do it, you will have in the the file not working, you can just use the F to, well, it didn't find the, this is interesting. Why it didn't find the mistake in here? Okay, again, we are in the, again, we have some untracked files. To be honest, I'm a bit surprised. I didn't expect that at all. All of the files are untracked. Okay, so maybe let's use that to show you other thing. You can just go with the branch master. We can change the branch. When we are on other branch, we can just go again for the branches, select master for deletion. It is my branch that I have locally, so I can just easily delete it. Yeah, and again, we can go for branches and just check out the master again. Okay, as you see here, it is now indexing. So maybe we can go back to that a bit later. Another thing I want to show you how I work with databases without the mouse is mostly I'm used to make any things with databases without using the graphical user interfaces. I just use it with the comments. It also keeps me reminding some things when I want to edit and so on. But also I got a bit rusty in that because I couldn't remember also how to make simple create table. I had to check it in the internet. But as you see on the right side, I have the database tab. This is quite interesting because normally you don't have shortcut for that. I have mapped it with Alt 0. But if you want to map any shortcuts, you can just press Ctrl Shift A again, and you can just shortcut manage shortcuts, and you will have the menu, and there you can just find some shortcuts you want to use and map the keys in that menu. And when I have focus in this window, I tend to use the shortcut to open the console. Like you see in here, it will be Ctrl Shift F10. I have short pop-up menu, just console, and in here I can just write commands to I want to execute on my database, for example, this one, and I don't have to look for that button to run it. As you see, it's just a Control Enter shortcut. It will highlight in a green color the part of code it will be made. So let's check that one. As you see, we just created some of the we made some of the tables. So for example, if you want to make select, also Control Enter. And as we see, we have no rows in here, but eventually you will have, and you can also make updates in here and so on. And also it will work in here with the some kind of code completing for you. So it's also really useful to write in this console. So close that. But I'm kind of surprised that still other files are not profiled in that repo. I don't know why, and it kind of broke my presentation. Kind of sad. Okay, maybe if we try to fetch everything. I really don't know. Really don't know. So maybe we can check another project, for example, this one. In the new window. We can go, for example, to notification constants tests. Again, this is untracked file, so we can just go to the navigation, delete that. Yes. Yeah. So I think that will be all about the version control system. Do you have any questions about that part of the presentation?
So actually there is one question. So Jacek, do you use split screens for different files? And if yes, what are useful shortcuts to work between two screens?
So actually, I don't do that too much because it's easier to just navigate between those files just by changing the tabs. Sometimes for comparison, but it is not so usual. So I use it with the mouse. So. Yeah, I'm also growing in this thing, so that's why I don't remember any shortcut. Sorry for that I don't have answer for that. Any other questions?
So far, only one. We can move on.
Yeah, okay. So I would also like to talk a bit about the testing. For example, if we have a file, a class, and we want to make a test for that, we have in the Java, in this case, it will be Kotlin, I think. We can jump in that kind of structure by pressing the Control Shift tab. This is awesome thing because right now, if we will have the if we will have the test written in that structure, this file, it will just show here in that list, and we can just choose it. And when we don't, we can just press the create new test, and it will create the test file for us and also prepare the implementation for that. So let's go for any test class that we have already. Yeah, done. So in here, as you see, we can some tests. If we want to run only one test, we can click that that button, but because we don't have SDK right now, it won't work. Yeah, okay. As you see, we have some red parts of the code. When we press F2K, it will just navigate us to those parts of the code and suggest some things we can do, as in here. So when we go in here, it will tell us, yeah, that we don't have the SDK chosen. Yeah, that project wasn't also a good example for presentation. Jesus, I'm so unlucky in here. So, but anyway, we can just go to the place we have highlighted in red, or maybe if it's just making the code better, it will be in yellow, and just show the possibilities that are suggested. But when we want to run the test, there is a command Shift F10, and it will try to run the code. But when we want to run the whole class, we can just make the focus on the class name, and also in here press the Shift 10. Sorry, Control Shift F10, like in here. Yeah. So Control Shift F10. Yep. But when we go here, it will run only this test. Is it understandable? Maybe some questions. I know I got a bit confused in here. Sorry for that.
No, we can move on, Jacek. Do we still have something to discuss?
Two short things only. The one will be with the terminal. I said that I, for example, avoid using terminal with the version control system, but for example, with the Maven, I like to use. So with the Alt F12, we can just enter the terminal. One important thing worth mentioning is that it's not the same terminal as we have, for example, in here. It is a bit different. So it is a separate instance of the terminal. So remember that when you have some variables in the regular terminal of the Linux, they might won't work in that one. So be sure that you exactly know what you do. So it will be maybe all about the terminal. Also, all the Unix commands work in here. That's also awesome. And the last thing I want to mention is that when you go to the window and not window, maybe, yes, to the help of the menu. You have here the tip of the day. It is awesome to have the tip of the day because when you have ticked that, it will just show you how to, some useful hints that you can use. For example, IntelliJ finds that you make some action a lot of times, but you make it using your mouse. So it may suggest you how to use it mm, with the shortcut with the keyboard. Okay, so that's and the last thing is that you have also in here something that I really like is the productivity guide. So when you enter that, you have some statistics about your code developments. For example, as you see, I used the code completion 2077 times. And I made it in about half a year because I was using this device for half a year, maybe a bit longer, 7-8 months. So in this time, I used the code completion so many times, and you can check all other things that happened to you. And also you can see that, for example, some of the things you have never used, and you can also check if there is something interesting for you and you want to learn also how to use the shortcuts for that. For me, it is really good measurement of my development because, as you see, for example, I can see that because of the shortcuts, I, for example, saved about 16,000 characters to write. So it is a lot. Yeah, and also, as you see, it says that you avoided some bugs, for example, potential bugs that might be could be done when you just write it without any code generation or other things you can do. Okay, this will be all. I'm really, really sorry for the end of the presentation when I made some messy things with the version control system. But maybe you have any questions that I can answer.
Yeah, let's wait a bit. In the meantime, I just want to say thank you very much, Jacek, for your presentation. Apart from just small mistakes, everything was really great. It happens. Guys, I don't see any questions right now, but if you have, please type them in the YouTube chat, and Jacek will answer them later on. We just need to rank as we have another speaker waiting. So thank you very much, Jacek. And now, thanks. I hope you are all staying with us because now it's time for Jarosław, who is going to talk about managed identity in Azure. So Jarek, you may start sharing your screen. Now it's time for you. Okay, perfect. You just need to unmute yourself because we cannot hear you. Oh, okay, great. Stage is yours.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jarosław Danilczuk. I work as a senior developer in DataArt. In the past, I was also a security consultant for some companies. I'm going to talk about managed identity in Azure from the .NET developer's point of view. Why managed identity at all? I typed probably millions lines of codes and also browsed millions lines of codes of other people. And too frequently, too often, I see something like this in the code. Please don't do this. Don't type your credentials in the code. It's very, very insecure. Then you commit it. Luckily, if this is only internal source sharing, very bad if you commit it to the GitHub or any other public repository. Sometimes people store those credentials in the config files. Please remember those config files are also checked into the source control, and they are visible to anyone who gets access to the source code. A few years ago, when I was starting giving this presentation, few people knew about Azure at all, but now everyone would say, but there is an Azure Key Vault, yeah? The greatest and latest solution. It's very secure, it's robust, it's modern, everything works fine. Yeah? And then I look into somebody else's code and I see something like this. To connect to Azure Key Vault, you also need to authenticate. So it doesn't solve any problem. In the past days, I remember them, I hope some of you know about them as well. We had domains, and the usual way of authenticating services between each other or to SQL Server was acquiring token from the domain server. The application got this token, it presented this token to the resource, and the resource verified it with the domain controller. It all worked, and we didn't have to do almost anything. And then the cloud happened. What it changed? Developers set up infrastructure now. You probably know it from your experience that too often you're asked, so set up your own app service, set up your own storage, set up your own database and make it work. And then suddenly it becomes production. We can do it very quickly. And what happens with security and authentication? I tend to ask people, and how did you secure this access? How did you secure this infrastructure? These are typical answers. It's someone else's job, or I will do it later because there's no budget, there's no time to do it now. First, it must work. First, I must deliver. Don't do this. Don't do this. If you do this, things like data breaches happen. Why they happen? Because people were in a hurry and they thought that authentication and securing resources is time consuming. It's very hard and they don't have the time. Please remember, your clients could lose millions on saving a few bucks on your time. So that's why in the cloud, Microsoft thought about it, and we have Azure Managed Identity. What is Azure Managed Identity? This is a service very similar, if not identical, to Active Directory in on-premises networks. How does it work? Only a short example. A function asks something, which is Azure, authenticate me, and it sends the request, get token. Azure returns the token. Then it can use this token to receive the data. Pretty simple and very similar to the simple Active Directory. And now you can think, how can I set this up? We have something that's called RBAC, Role-Based Access Control. It's available for every, almost every service in Azure. When you have thing like app service, function app, something that acts and needs its own identity, you can go to the identity tab and you should switch it on. For some services, it is on by default. For some, you have to switch it. Please check it before you you make your own trials, tests, and develop this. Okay, so then the app service will have the identity. Identity is a name. In this case, it will be sample RBAC, and it will have a GUID that will identify it. So it will be like a user in Active Directory. And then if we need to access something, we need to let this application in. So when you have, for example, storage account or Azure SQL or some other event bus or some other service, you have the tab access control, and you can check your own access as a user because you're usually a person, but you can also grant role assignments to other users, to other roles. When you click on the add role assignments, you will see the window where you can pick the role. The number of roles is vast. You should read the documentation, but usually you will see something like reader, contributor, or owner. Of course, you as a developer probably will need the owner rights, but your services most often will need a reader. So as in this example, you can see the storage blob data reader right that will be assigned to Azure user. This user will, after we press save, will have an access to this storage. But how to do? Yeah, you can check it in the preview of the roles assigned. So where can we use this nice functionality? Services that can have identity. So we can think about them, who can have the passport to cross the borders or to enter special rooms. Plenty of them, and this list is growing. When I was giving similar talk 7 months ago, this list was a bit shorter. It grew, and it will likely grow as customers request. So you can see all the compute resources like virtual machines, scale sets, app service function, logic apps. You can see even that the container instances can have identity assigned, container registry task. So anything you can think of that should have this identity is likely already enabled. What can we access using those passports, which is manage identity? We can access resource manager, so we can use this identity to act on other resources, to configure them, to deploy them. We can, of course, access Key Vault. We can access Data Lake, SQL, Azure SQL, Event Hubs storage, one of the most frequently used services. So the list is maybe not that vast, but they are key elements in Azure that you can get your access to. Surprisingly, as you might have noticed by this time, one of the Microsoft's or Azure's very own service called Cosmos DB is not on this list. That's not a mistake. For some reason that's a mystery to me, the Cosmos DB does not support AAD authentication yet. I haven't seen any preview notices or something like this, but that's how the life is. The most frequently used storage blobs, Event Hub, Service Bus, Key Vault, SQL, Data Lake, they all support this AAD authentication. And of course, if you want to authenticate API your web app to another web app, you can do this because web applications by default have the ability to use the Azure Active Directory as the authentication service. There are two types of managed identity: system and user. What's the difference? The system managed identity is something like your personal ID in your country, if you are issued any personal IDs. It's created as a part of an Azure resource. It's assigned to this resource, and it cannot be moved from this resource. So a resource receives a GUID, and it stays there forever. When you destroy the resource, when you delete it, you delete also the identity. There is also something like user managed identity. It's in fact the service principal. It's a standalone Azure resource. It exists without, it can exist without a link to any other resource. What's the use for it? If you, for example, deploy many virtual machines which will access single storage, you can create such a standalone identity and assign it to them as you deploy them dynamically, as you stop them, and then they will all use this identifier to access those resources. So it's something like the club membership. You can assign it to many people, and you can pass it from a person to person. And the most important thing, because the developers say that it's too complicated. You saw the diagram. It's requesting for the token, getting a reply, sending it somewhere, attaching it, etc. Microsoft thought about it, and in .NET they created a great libraries to use it. But first things first, you should be very careful when you're using libraries from Microsoft. For some time, they were not decided on how they want to name the service. The Azure itself, at first it was called Windows Azure, and it was called just Azure. Now they surprisingly removed the connotation with Microsoft, so it's just Azure the naming convention. And please remember that many examples in the web refer to the old libraries. Those old libraries didn't have those nice functions that I will show you in a moment. Everything I'm showing refers to the newest libraries from the namespace Azure, like Azure Storage, Azure Identity, etc. All the other libraries, when you check in NuGet, they are deprecated. Okay, so how simple is it to use the managed identity? That's what we are all waiting for, the simplicity. It's that simple. Using Azure Identity, using Azure Blobs, you had to add it anyway to use the blobs, and you create a new blob client just with one additional parameter, new default Azure credential. What happens in the background? Everything I showed you on the diagram before. It asks for the token, it receives the reply, or it reads some cache token, it handles the cache, and then it passes this token to the storage service. The storage service checks the token, checks for expiration, and then it authenticates us. It is that simple. So if you are still thinking that having configuration and naming those configuration parameters with the username, password, then reading this configuration in some classes, maybe using dependency injection, maybe creating config service on your own in each class, and then getting those user password or some SAS token is easier. Look at that new default Azure credential. This simple object covers almost every scenario that is possible. For blobs, for sure. Key vault, exactly the same scenario. You create a new secret client, you just give key vault URI, and you add default Azure credential, and you can start reading your secrets. It's that simple. It was not that simple in the previous versions of those libraries. So be careful, keep in mind to use the newest versions. The namespace starts with Azure dot. Okay, so the world looks perfect. Yeah, we have solved all our problems. We could go home. Not necessarily. The things are simple for Key Vault, things are simple for storage. How about accessing SQL? That's one of the most important services we are using while developing. First, You go to Azure SQL database or managed instance of SQL Server, and you create a user. The user doesn't have a password. You don't need to store this password. This way, you enable Azure SQL Database or Managed Instance SQL Server to use Azure Active Directory as authentication service. On the screen, you see the example of the user, which is a person. So I typed my whole email address. That's my identifier in Azure Active Directory. And I added myself to the DB owner role. So now I can do anything with this database. When you want to add a user, like for example, you created a function that will read something from the database that needs the information that's in the database. When you create a user, you should type this function's name. It's the name you see on the screen when you create the resource. And then, of course, like you did before, and like you see on the screen, you can alter the role DB reader and add a member with the function name. And now the rest, how easy it is to access Azure SQL depends on what technology you're using. If you're using .NET 4.6 to 4.7, maybe 4.8, or you are using .NET Core with some older libraries, you can do it in a pretty simple way. For .NET Core, it's enough to, in the constructor of DB context, just to get the DB connection that's created and assign an access token. This access token can be retrieved from Azure Service Token Provider. It's maybe not that simple as in storage, but it's also a one-liner, no usernames, no passwords. This is for .NET Core. If you are using .NET, which if you think about the future, you should migrate to .NET Core. It's pretty mature now. If you're still using .NET Framework, you should add to your web config following things. First thing is the SQL authentication provider. It registers the service. And you should create a connection string that contains the authentication method Active Directory interactive, and then you can use the code that was on the previous slide. So C# code is enough for .NET Core. The rest is handled automatically. This web config section is for .NET Framework, and you have to add it. But if you're on the newest, latest, cutting edge of libraries and frameworks, you could use something like this. This managed identity authentication type is available only from version 2.10 of SQL client. Sometimes we're not allowed to go too much forward for different reasons, but if you are, it's the simplest possible method of connecting to the SQL server. You just put the server name into connection string. Of course, connection string can be just in a config param. Authentication is Active Directory Managed Identity, or for some reason, there's another name for this, Active Directory MSI. Database name, and you don't even need to type the username or any other thing. So this is that simple. SQL was always different than the rest, but Microsoft tried to do it as simple as possible, and eventually, very recently, they managed to do the one-liner for this. So now to breathe a little bit, we can see that queues, which are also extensively used, are accessed in a very simple way. Okay, so we know how to do it when we deploy the system. We'll assign those identities to all the services. We'll configure everything in Azure. We know how simple it is to use in the code. But before we deploy everything, many times we run the code locally from a local machine, whether it's Windows or Linux or Mac. Some of us are using Visual Studio, some of us are using Visual Studio Code, and some of us are typing in some text editor because .NET Core is that flexible that it doesn't need the advanced IDE. So what do we do next? This new default Azure credential has some logic behind it. Take a look at that. It accepts this default Azure credential accepts options, and in the background, when you call this default Azure credential, it tries everything in certain order. It tries every possible way of getting credentials to Azure. It tries command line, so AZ tool, if you know it. It tries to find environmental variables with some credentials, with some user, with some password. Sometimes you are using system that's not connected to Azure Active Directory, so you might use the environment for this. It tries to start the interactive browser because maybe you are developing a desktop application that is able to ask the user, please log in to your Azure service. Managed identity, this is for Azure services, shared token cache, Visual Studio Code credential you see on the screen, and Visual Studio credential. What does it mean? It means that this smart module Azure Identity knows about all those things and will keep trying every one of them until it succeeds. It means that it's enough to be logged in into Visual Studio to access resources. What kind of possibilities does it give to us? We can easily grant and revoke access to test resources, maybe UAT, maybe production resources, to developers, and revoke them. We just assign, like I showed at the beginning, we just assign a role of reader or owner to some resource, to the user, to the physical user, using the email address, for example, and then we revoke it. And nobody has to pass anyone password. You know? Sometimes some people are not responsible, so when they are fired, they can take their credentials with them. Why should they? We don't need to know any credentials, so we can't take anything away. So how can we achieve it in the Visual Studio? You probably know the screen. You can add accounts, as many accounts as you want. So if you work for different clients, you can add all of those accounts, and this library will try each single of them to access. If you are developing in Linux or in command line and not using Visual Studio, what I recommend and tested many times in the past is using the command line login. There's this AZ tool. If you are using Azure, you probably know already about it. It's cross-platform, so you can use it in any system, Mac, Linux, Windows. And you can log in there. And once you log in, it will cache your credentials. And as you saw in this pattern list, Azure can look for those credentials. If you are sure that you are not using, for example, environment variables, or you don't want to allow using environment variables, you can exclude them using those options. So logging into Azure this way is more than enough. So just to quickly summarize, please don't type your credentials in code. Please reject when you are asked for storing credentials in config files or in any places that are publicly, or even in your for the group of developers that are available to many people, that are visible at all. Azure Managed Identity is pretty simple to use for .NET developer, and we can use it to bring a lot of benefit to our clients and to mitigate a lot of risks for them. You can use those links you see on the screen to check more details about managed identity. 1 year ago, it was pretty fresh technology, and now I would say it's very mature. So you can go with it in production. I used it in many projects, and it's pretty fail-proof and also easy to manage. This documentation from Microsoft sometimes contains examples, like I warned you before, using older libraries. Please be aware of that and try to look for Azure.identity, the NuGet package name, and then you'll see the latest and the simplest ways of using. Okay. I suspect there might be some questions. Some of you are watching live. Some of you are will be watching recording of this webinar. If you watch this webinar after I disconnected, you can send me an email, and I will try to direct you in the way of success. So thank you all. I'm looking for questions now, or I'll be checking my inbox in the next days and look for your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacek. So now it's time for questions and answers. I don't see any right now. We have a very silent audience today, very shy one. Or maybe your presentations are so clear that no questions are needed to be asked.
I think many people will be watching this this webinar offline, and I hope to receive many questions in emails.
Yeah, we hope to. So guys, if you have any questions to Jacek, please send him an email and he will respond as quickly as he can. So Jacek, thank you once again for your presentation. Once again, big bravo to our speakers, and thank you very much for joining us today. If you want to follow our next events, please check all the links below the transmission and follow our Facebook pages. So thank you once again and have a great evening. Bye-bye.